Hello, I'm recording a short video today. It's Easter Monday and it's a story I really love, and I've been telling it online at a couple of storytelling events, and I think it's a story that's got some good wisdoms, some good ideas for what we're going through at the moment, and maybe offers us a little guidance when we're finding things difficult, when we're living in very close quarters. Before I tell you the story, just for some of our younger audience members, there's one word that I think you might need to know to really understand what this story is going on about, and that is the word Messiah. And Messiah can mean quite specific things in different religions, but to give you just an idea of what it means, the Messiah is a saviour, a liberator, somebody who brings freedom. And this is a Jewish story. So if you want to find out more about what the Messiah means specifically for Jewish people, I'll put some links in the bit below so you can do your own research. The story begins like this. There was once a monastery set up high in the mountains. It was a beautiful setting, just where the sun kisses the silver edge of rocks and the rich green of the woodland, of the forests. And there, in the monastery, a small group of monks lived lives of peace and kindness to one another, and to the many visitors and people looking for a treat who came to visit them and to learn a little and to develop their relationship with God and with the earth. And everything was going very, very well, and as time does, time passed. And as time passed, something changed, and fewer visitors, fewer and fewer people seeking refuge and sanctuary seemed to be going to the monastery, until, after a few months, it seemed to the monks that it was just them. That there were a handful of visitors every year, and it was just them, and a place that had brought them great joy and great freedom, this place in the mountains that had seemed so secluded, now seemed isolated. It was just them on the top of a mountain. And when you feel isolated, when you're living in quite a small space with other people, well, I don't know about you, but the monks, they started getting irritated with one another. They started getting annoyed with one another. And soon they started griping and snapping. And before long, when the old abbot called prayers, the peace and quiet that had once been so calm and beautiful before and after prayers was now filled with unspoken dissatisfaction and irritation. The air seemed alive with it. The poor abbot. The monastery was dying before his eyes, and he did not know what to do. The few visitors they did have didn't stay for long, and they certainly didn't come back. It was not a sort of place anymore that you'd want to go back to. So the abbot did what he often chose to do when he felt the need for space and time to think. He pulled on his old boots and he went for a walk. He walked out of the monastery garden, over the mountain ridge and the thick pine forest that kissed the top of the mountains. And there, as he looked, he saw, curling above the treetops, a little plume of smoke. And he felt glad in his heart, because he knew that that plume of smoke meant that his friend, the old rabbi from the nearby town, was there in his cottage. It was his own little hermitage, his own private space that he went to sometimes when he needed space to think. The abbot hurried through the woods to see his old friend. When the abbot knocked on the door, the rabbi answered, and the two old men embraced as brothers, as old friends. And the rabbi kissed him on both cheeks, and he said, my friend, I see a cloud hangs over you. Tell me, what troubles you?" And the abbot looked down. It is the same cloud that hangs over my monastery. And the rabbi said, tell me everything that ails you. But first, I shall make some tea. And the two old men sat on the little porch of that cottage in the woods, and they talked and they talked. And they talked of God and they talked of man. And they talked of truth and of falsehoods. They talked of nature and the changing seasons. They talked and they talked and they talked until the sun seemed to be dipping down below the mountains, and the whole of the area was bathed in golden light. And the rabbi turned to his friend and he said, this is not why you came to see me. Tell me, my friend, what troubles you? And the abbot unburdened his heart to the rabbi and told him all about how things had changed at his monastery, about how people were being unpleasant to one another, and he didn't know what to do to make things better. His monastery was dying. The rabbi thought, and he smiled, and he shared what came to him. As night fell, the two old men said farewell to one another. They hugged and they gave each other a kiss on the cheek, and they said goodbye as if it was the last time they would ever see each other. And maybe we should always say goodbye to those we love, just in case. And so the abbot returned home to the monastery. The next morning, after prayers, he called his brothers together and he said, brothers, monks, I wanted to share a piece of news with you. Yesterday, as you know, I went to see my friend the rabbi in the woods, and he had had the most astonishing dream. And I am not here to tell you whether it was true or not, but I had the same dream. So maybe, who knows? But he told me this. The dream told us this. The dream said that the Messiah lives amongst us here at the monastery, that the Messiah is one of us. There was a stunned, astonished silence for a few moments, and then the monks went about their daily business, but the abbot's words had just planted a little seed in the hearts of those monks. So later that day, when Brother Matthew saw Brother John, fat Brother John, sniffing and licking the spoon and then about to put it back in the soup he was making for everybody's lunch, instead of shouting obscenities and being quite rude to Brother John, Brother Matthew thought for a second. He thought, it couldn't be him, could it? The Messiah? Brother John couldn't be the Messiah. He's saying, ooh, but he is kind, and he is generous, and his food does taste really good. And instead of speaking hard words to Brother John, Brother Matthew said, oh, brother, let me get you a fresh spoon. And out in the garden, Brother Mark was working the garden with old Father Brown, and old Father Brown really was very old, and he was always tripping over, and he was always complaining and saying that Brother Mark wasn't doing it right and that it was better when he was in charge. And he was so irritating. And so when Father Brown fell over for like the umpteenth time, Brother Mark was about to say harsh words to him, but that little seed, it couldn't be Father Brown, could it? Father Brown couldn't be the Messiah. He is knowledgeable, and he really does understand how things grow and how the world becomes green and lush. So instead of using hard words, Brother Mark spoke kindly to Father Brown and helped him up. Day by day and week by week, something changed in the monastery. And it seemed to the abbot one morning that once more the monastery was a wonderful place to be. It might even have been slightly better than it was before. Everybody seeing the Messiah in each one of their brothers. And one cold morning, the abbot woke up and he thought, it couldn't be. It couldn't be me, could it? He knew that this was a little wisdom that he had shared from the rabbi, that it wasn't true, but he still awoke with that thought of, could I be the Messiah? And so he started treating himself as if he could be the Messiah. And that thought seemed to blossom in the hearts and minds of many of the monks, and soon they started treating themselves with the same care and love that they treated to the others. Because who knows, maybe any of us could be the Messiah. A few months later, the old abbot died, and he died smiling, and he died loved, and he died knowing that his monastery was a beautiful and peaceful place where people came and left with that flame in their heart, that knowledge that within them, and maybe within everybody, there was a little flame, a little potential to be the Messiah. It's the end of my story for today. I'll be recording some more stories next week, so watch this space. Take care of yourselves, my friends. Stay well. Goodbye.